Okay, today we're going to be teaching you on how to treat for roaches. The first part about this lesson in Roaches 101 is to determine first and foremost whether it's an outdoor cockroach, which is called the American cockroach or wood roach, or some people call them the water bug. Whether it's that you're dealing with coming in from the outside or under the home or in from the mulch piles, or the most common roach that we get our phone calls from customers is for the German cockroach. Now those are the smaller cockroaches that end up infesting the kitchen areas. They'll come in high numbers and multiply really fast, and so we treat them in two different ways, but no matter what, we use similar products. So when we're treating the inside of a home for roaches, we normally use a strong product called Demon Max, and we mix it, and a lot of times we'll also include an IGR as well to control them from producing onto the next stage of life. The IGR will prevent them, if they're a baby roach, from being able to molt and reach adult lifehood. So basically it will prevent them from having kids of their own. Now usually the Demon Max will kill them, but we always add this just because we want to give our customers more bang for their buck. So in addition to this for the inside of the home, which we normally recommend people being out for 2 hours after we spray, we also use for the German cockroach, which is what we deal with mostly, a roach bait in the kitchen areas. Now, a lot of the customers will ask us, what do I need to do to prepare for you to treat our kitchen? Do I need to take everything out of our cabinets? And the answer to that is no, because we actually use this bait in the cabinets in discrete areas, which means they don't have to bring everything out of the cabinets because we don't normally spray inside the cabinets. Now on a rare occasion, if it's a really bad infestation, we may spray inside the cabinets, or if it's a vacant rental place and there's plenty of cleaned out cabinets with nothing in them, we may spray inside the cabinets. But for the most part, our common rule of thumb is using bait inside the cabinets. We also use this aerosol insecticide around little areas like on the countertop where roaches can hide. Sometimes they'll run from behind a cabinet or out from behind the countertop backsplash. So normally we'll use an aerosol insecticide after we pull things about 6 inches back, 6 or 8 inches back from the backsplash. We'll put some of this around the cracks in the backsplash behind the sink or behind the microwave, and we'll make a perimeter there to prevent them from coming out of those cracks and to kill them. But I also found a really good example of an American cockroach or the water bug or wood roach, and it just happened to be coming into the house, and it's moving so fast because the pesticide's affecting it. But this is a different product or a different pest than the German cockroach, and they're treated in different ways. German cockroaches, we will focus in the kitchen areas with a bait, and we will focus throughout the whole house with a bait as we spray. But on American cockroach treatments, there's no need to heavily bait a kitchen. However, because American cockroaches come in from the outside, and they come in from the crawl space, and they come in from under the wood piles like the mulch piles, it's important to treat the outside. Now on a normal German cockroach treatment, we will focus all of our time on the inside of the home, and unless the customer requests us to spray the outside, we normally don't treat the outside as protocol. With American cockroaches, we flip-flop the focus on the kitchen with baiting to spraying the exterior and using an outdoor product to prevent them from coming in.
Before treating for roaches, it is important to distinguish which type of roach you will be treating for. The office will attempt to determine this before your scheduled service. However, sometimes it can be difficult over the phone. American roaches are larger, dark brown roaches, which usually come from underneath the home, from wood piles outside, or sneak in through the garage. The main difference is we usually will not find them in the kitchen cabinets, and therefore, instead of using roach bait in the kitchen cabinets, we add an exterior treatment to eliminate them from coming in. More commonly, we will be treating homes with a German cockroach problem. The main question when inspecting is asking if people are having a problem in the kitchen areas and cabinets. During this method of treatment, we will focus all of our time on the inside of the home, and instead of spraying the outside of the home, we will actually spend that time baiting inside of the kitchen and bathroom areas, and sometimes in other places as well, depending on the severity of the infestation.
Okay, we're inside of a home treating for roaches, and the first thing you want to do when you get inside of a home, first you introduce yourself, you go ahead and you inspect a little bit, and let the customer always tell you a little bit about where they're seeing the problem. Normally for a German cockroach infestation, this is going to be the area of the problem, the kitchen area. However, if they've been dealing with the German cockroaches for more than 3 to 6 months, a lot of times that infestation will go further out into the home, into the living areas, and into the restrooms. And so regardless, we want to treat the whole home thoroughly, and sometimes worse infestation will require a lot more time and a lot more effort as far as products are concerned. Now, speaking of products, this is the bait we use, and we have a dark color bait and a light color bait. The Alpine Rotation 2 and the Max Force FC Select that's dark colored. Now, they're both good products with different active ingredients. However, the reason I have two different colors of bait is because usually your cabinets will either be dark colored or light colored. And so, because we do place this in the cabinets, I have two different colors of baits to help us to choose which is the best color, whether it's a dark surface we're placing it in or whether it's a light surface. So today it happens to be a lighter colored cabinet. So if you come over here, most cabinets are going to have items in them. However, this cabinet's empty. But this gives you a really good opportunity to see where it's good to bait. In essence, you can use kind of like a 4 corners rule. But 4 corners, to be thorough, actually equals 8 corners. If you check this out, you'll see what I mean. 1, 2, 3, 4. And there's also 4 deeper corners. 1, 2, 3, 4. So as you get ready to bait, it's important not to miss any cabinets or to overlook different areas, because the bait will only attract them from about 2 to 3 feet from where they're hiding. So we want to treat all the areas we can with the bait. Now, here you can see you put a little bit in each corner. Now, you can say, Joey, well, how much do I put in each corner? Well, I'm glad you asked. Come on, and I'll show you. You can see these 3 little screws. You have a choice. A lot of times I like to do a line, and if you do a line, you make it look neat, about somewhere following the guideline of the hinge. So you can see that's about the normal amount you would put for a regular roach service. Now, let's just say you have a lot of roaches, and you say, Joey, I don't know if that's going to cut it. Well, you can make a thicker line. So let's go right here, and I'll show you what a thicker line may look like. You can let it come out a little bit more thick and do a little bit more that way. Or you can also do a dot. So a dot is like about the size of these screw heads I just showed you. So if you come down here, here's a dot. And basically, here's another one. Just enough for them to come and eat, but not so much to where it's spilling out, we're wasting product, or it's going to get all over the place. So as you look, I'm going to go ahead and treat all these areas. You can also treat on the inside area. Let me grab my flashlight real quick. If you look right here, there's a crack on the inside of each hinge. So I just placed some bait inside that crack. If you look here in the corner, I'm going to place some bait right here. Now I'm going to place some bait up here. So basically, you put them in the cracks where the roaches like to hide. And this is an example of what not to do. You can see there, if your hand gets lazy and you start doing that, the customer just starts to think, why did I hire this company? They don't really care about my home. They will understand if you do it neatly that we're doing what we need to do to get rid of the roaches, so they're not going to be upset. So we also we also bait underneath these cabinets as well, and in all the same areas. And so you do have to do some reaching if you really want to get rid of the roaches and keep getting raises. It's important to get good compliments for customer service and not complaints. So one of the easiest ways to please the customers is to take your time and to show that you care about your job and to do a good job. Now, while I'm down here, another good spot to look is underneath areas like this, underneath the countertop edges. And a lot of times roaches will love to hide in those areas. And so If you're in a place that has a lot of roaches, you may see them in the kitchen drawers. So here on a kitchen drawer, you might say, well, where do I put it? This is one of my favorite spots to put it, on a drawer. Or you could put it, sometimes I'll pull a drawer out really far and put a line on the edge of the drawer. Now, one thing you want to do before you put it on the inside of a drawer is you want to make sure there's no food items in there, or no spoons and no forks. So you can put it on the inside corner of a cabinet drawer. You just want to make sure you're doing it in a non-food item drawer. Okay, and that's how we bait for roaches. Okay, we've gone over some of the most common areas to bait when you're baiting for roaches. All of the around the cabinets, you want to hit pretty much high cabinets and low cabinets. We've talked about looking, inspecting, and baiting underneath the edge of a countertop. But here's some other areas that we're going to go over to make sure you look and bait. Up here would be a great place to put some bait. If it's an infestation you're dealing with, if you're not seeing barely any roaches, you may not have to bother with that. However, if you're seeing a lot of roaches, there will be roaches hiding up in there. It's also important whenever you're baiting to look behind and underneath cabinets. These little cracks here basically are great places for roaches to go and hide. A lot of times you'll see roach droppings up there, but it's good to look in those areas and bait there as well. Sometimes we'll end up baiting around electrical plates, because a lot of times roaches will go behind here, and so we'll use a little line here or there. Other places to look when you're baiting for roaches are underneath a kitchen windowsill, and sometimes there's cracks in there, but a lot of times roaches will hide in these areas and come out at night. So an area like this or under here are good spots to put bait. So we'll normally put bait every 1 to 3 feet when we're treating in these cabinet areas or along kitchen windowsill. But just the key rule of thumb is when you're treating with bait is to be slow, not be in a rush, to be patient, and to inspect as you treat. Having a good flashlight will help you do that. Now, we've talked a little bit about what we do when we go to a customer's home and we start treating for roaches. Once again, you introduce yourself, you inspect, and I like to start out with the baiting as we've showed you, because that way, if the people need to gather their things, you're not going to be spraying a spray that has a heavy smell. So that gives them time to gather their things, and it also gives them time to see, okay, he's starting to work, so they know they're going to get what they're paying for. We also, after we bait, in the midst of our baiting and spraying, we want to lean on an aerosol insecticide when we're treating for roaches. So a common area you'll want to put this is around the backsplash cracks. First rule of thumb when we're doing this is to pull things out that may be getting aerosol on them. We don't want any dishes to get aerosol on it. We don't want any bottled water to get aerosol on it. We don't want to get any cleaner that they're going to put their hands on, or hand soap to get aerosol on it. A lot of times you'll be in a home where they have baby bottles. Sometimes I'll put those baby bottles in a sink and just try to steer clear from that sink and not get any chemicals near the baby bottles. Other times you may want to cover them. But we want to bring everything out before we start spraying. And basically this spray allows us to put a barrier so that if roaches are crawling in and out of the kitchen, they won't be able to go from point A to point B without crossing over our fresh pesticide treatment. As you're treating with this, you can also go down the left and right of a stove. If you had a dishwasher and you can't really get into the dishwasher with your bait because it's a big box and there's tight little crevices around, you can use this to go and trace around the dishwasher. You see, roaches do like the humidity and the warmth that comes from a dishwasher, so that's a common place they like to hide. And so it's important to treat it whether it's with a bait or with an aerosol spray. You can also use your B&G for spraying around a dishwasher. You just have to be careful to make sure it's tightly shut, and also that when you're done spraying around the perimeter, not only is it tightly sealed so that no pesticide gets inside the dishwasher, but you take time with a paper towel and wipe off any residue that was left on the outer doors. Some other places to treat with an aerosol are places like the kitchen windowsill. You can go underneath the kitchen windowsill as well. If I needed to get up here and I couldn't reach with the bait, I can do a little spraying. Roaches would like to hide in these areas, especially if you have an infestation. Now, one tool in our roach tool belt is a dust. This can get a little messy, so we don't use it a lot. However, it can be very useful. The couple of the places where it can be very useful is behind where a plumbing goes into the wall, and there's places where our sprays and our baits normally don't get. We can dust in a wall void, or I also like to use this if it's hard to reach and treat around a dishwasher. Now, this is mostly meant to be used for voids, which means you're not supposed to dust in open spaces. If you dust too much, you can see it fill the air just like a smoke billows out. However, if you look down here, you can stick this little stem inside of a wall outlet, and you can place a dust which will spread out, and basically that's a good way to treat in areas you can't reach. Now, whenever you fill this up with the dust, it's important never to fill it up more than halfway, and whenever you're ready to use it, you want to sift it up and down, because you don't want the dust to be settled and heavy on the bottom. What happens is it'll clog, and it will be too thick to go out the way that it's supposed to go out. And usually there's also, if it ever does get clogged, there's also a tool here that comes out that you can unclog it by unscrewing the back end, and you can clear the duster. And if you dust properly, you shouldn't need to use that tool. But the proper way to dust, once again, is to not fill it up more than halfway, and to loosen the dust before you use it. I also don't recommend dusting perfectly right side up. I like to dust a little bit at an angle, and sometimes I'll turn it both ways. I'll dust a couple puffs this way and a couple puffs that way. Also, for dusting, this can be valuable for ants as well, if there's areas that ants are traveling and it's hard to reach areas. On a rare occasion, we'll drill a small hole into a wall void, just big enough to allow the stem to go into, and then what we'll do is we'll poof in areas that ants are getting but we can't see them. So if they're coming into a kitchen and there's just no way to get control of them with our liquid products and with our ant bait, then sometimes as a last resort we'll use our duster. Okay, now we've come into the customer's home, we've introduced ourselves, we've inspected, and we've also started the baiting process. As we finish the baiting process, we've showed you how to use an aerosol can to treat for roaches in a kitchen area. Now that we're done with that, we use our B&G. And we've already explained, we use a pretty strong product in the B&G for roaches, and this gives quicker control and a higher mortality rate. So as we get ready to spray, you want to make sure your fan tip is set to a large fan spray, and you want to make sure that you've got your product mixed up. And normally there's going to be a refrigerator in all the homes you treat, and that's one hot spot you definitely want to pull out if at all possible. Now, some refrigerators may have too much stuff on top, or they may be too heavy, or the floor may not be in the right condition to pull it out. And that's okay if you can only reach behind it. This would be normally how you would spray behind it with a fan spray up and down if you cannot get the refrigerator out. But roaches love the compartment where the motor is. There's cardboard that usually covers that, and there's also heat, and they love heat, they love wires, they love the moisture, and they actually like cardboard or wood. So normally, if you're dealing with a roach infestation, it's definitely important to get some treatment behind the fridge. If you can pull it out, great. You can actually inspect and treat in a close proximity. If not, you can just spray behind it. Now, as you treat with the fan spray, you basically want to go about up as high to where the baseboard stops. You don't want to go above the baseboard, and you want to go out about 2 or 3 inches. So basically, when you're spraying with the B&G inside the home, you go up to the top of the baseboard. You don't want to go over the baseboard because that can leave stains on the paint. And you want to go out about 2 to 3 inches. So when you're using your fan, it's really important to watch what you're doing so you don't overspray and get messy. Now we're treating for German cockroaches. This is the treatment where we have a heavy focus on the kitchen, not like the outdoor American cockroaches where we just have focused mostly on indoor-outdoor treatment. But now here with the German cockroach treatment, we've treated behind the fridge. We've talked about how important it is to pull the fridge out, but it's also important to treat behind the stove and inspect, and if you can, also pull the stove out. Now what I've learned is you can pull from the back here and you lift a little bit up on the handle. Now you don't lift too much up on the handle because you don't want to break the handle, but if you do both, you can scoot it. You just need to scoot it a couple of inches, just good enough to get your fan spray behind there. And so basically, if you have a flashlight and it moves easily, you can look behind there. And a lot of times, if there's a heavy infestation, you can treat heavily. Now, there's enough room for me to do my fan spray over here, so I'm going to treat this way. And you can also treat underneath. Now, in a tight area right here on this other side, we're going to go ahead and push this back. This is the beauty of your 4-way tip with your B&G sprayer, because in this tight area, I'm not really able to use my fan. However, I can put it on a pin stream, and we usually only use a large pin or a large fan because the other 2 nozzles on the B&G usually get clogged too easily. So if you try to use a small fan spray or a small pin stream, normally you're spending most of your time trying to unclog the tip. But if you look here, as we approach this, we can get it with a pin stream a little bit further back without having to worry about the fan spray overspraying. So now, just to clarify and to recap, it's very important when you're treating for German cockroaches to not only bait all the cabinets and all the hot spots where you've been finding roaches, but it's also important to treat behind the fridge with the spray treatment. It's also important to pull out a stove, and it's also important to treat around the dishwasher, whether that's with your liquid treatment, whether it's with an aerosol treatment, or whether it's a bait. We also showed how you can use a dust as well, and that can be very useful when it comes to getting far behind the dishwasher. We're in a bathroom here, and some places to treat in the restroom when we're treating for roaches is obviously spraying the baseboards, spraying a little bit maybe around the back end of the toilet and around the sink areas. Now usually these cracks and crevices behind the sink are good spots to inspect and to place roach bait. As you can see, the caulking is cracking and fading away, so the roach bait fits perfectly in those areas. Now, if I was just to leave this restroom with doing the said above treatment methods, but I failed to look up in this corner, then I would fail to see that crack where there's obviously a lot of pests getting in and out. You can see them sticking their little antennas out here. And so I've got to get up in there with some bait. You also want to take a good look around the closet and the door hinges in the closet. A lot of times they'll cluster at the top of the doors and stay in these corners. As you can see here, there's a lot of old roach droppings. I'm not seeing a lot of live activity right now, but these are definitely places you'll want to bait as well. A little crevice like this, which is a hollow spot, isn't a bad spot to bait. They also like electrical components and switch plates, so it doesn't hurt to place a little bit of bait around those areas because there's warmth that gets transmitted with electrical conduit. It's a kitchen we're treating for roaches, and there's lots of places they can hide. You just got to be observant. Obviously, we're going to be opening and inspecting and treating around the cabinet doors. In this area, there's a sink, and there's granite countertops that are tiles. You basically look for any crack and crevice, and you pretty much have to get down low and check these areas. As you can see here, there's good spots for roaches to hide. There's also a nice gap here where on the left of the cabinet where there's a wall area and about a 1-inch gap. That's also another place you want to bait. As you can see, I've already baited here. Now, if I walk away from this kitchen without inspecting the tater bin or without inspecting their little pantry bin, I would have missed a hot spot area that I found. As you can see here, we have a bunch of little baby roaches that were hanging around the hinges. As I was getting ready to walk out of this place, I inspected and treated. I just decided it's important to look under this table here, and if you look real close, I can get my camera in focus. See all the little baby roaches? So you can see them sticking out their little antenna, and there's actually hundreds of them right here. You can see them huddled all right in a row. So basically, let's look a little closer. Hundreds. Okay, I just showed you where these roaches were hiding, and now I'd like to show you the phenomenon of our bait and how well it works. So as you can see, we've got all these little roaches coming out of hiding, and it's like a little feast. And it took us several tries to figure out which roach product works best, and we've narrowed it down to the particular product we choose to use, and you can see why. Now, not only does this work really well, but it's also a safe product to use. It's safe for people and pets because it doesn't affect their systems at all, and it also starts working fairly quickly. Usually about 10 to 15 minutes after eating the bait, they'll start dying. Okay, we're here in a little trailer that we've been hired to exterminate for roaches, and one thing you want to be careful of is whenever you're treating for roaches, as you inspect, you want to be careful not to open the cabinets over your head when you have an infestation. The reason is, as you can see here, if you open that too fast, some of these can fall out on you. Now, usually we treat with a baiting method, and we combine that with sprays, either an aerosol, usually around the kitchen areas, backsplashes, countertops, or we also use our BNG sprayer around the baseboards. So usually we'll use bait in the areas such as inside cabinets and a lot of the areas of infestation. However, if you find an area that has a whole lot of problems, like this fuse box I'm about to open, sometimes a little bit of spray can be a quicker kill, and so you can either use a fan spray to kill the roaches in an area like this. Obviously that would be dependent on whether or not there's electric here, but when I say an area like this, I mean clusters of roaches. When you have a large cluster of roaches binding together as they are here, then a spray can kill them a little bit quicker than placing bait. In this particular fuse box, I don't believe that would be a good idea, simply because obviously you don't want to short out any electrical components. Here is another good example of whether or not we would bait or spray. And when you open this, if you don't see a whole lot of roaches, you go ahead and bait in the normal places. But if you see, let's just say like this, if you see about 10 or more mist of the insecticide with our sprays, whether it be aerosol or with the B&G, might be give some quicker control over them. Now in an area like this where you have some cabinet areas with some drawers, you can bait on the side. You can pull out the drawer and bait along the edge of the rail system. A lot of times you wouldn't want to place the bait directly in the drawer with their stuff, but there are some areas, as you can see here, that can house the bait rather safely. So now there is one spot on the inside. You can either do a little bait right like that, or up this corner you can do a little bait. Now usually I only bait drawers like this if it's a severe infestation. If there's not a whole lot of activity, it's not that necessary to bait the drawers. But if you have a lot of activity, you have to be a lot more thorough. Whenever we're doing a kitchen, especially if you have a severe infestation, it's important to look high and low. Now when I say high and low, you have to get down on your knees. Sometimes you got to look underneath the areas where the countertop runs, the ledge. And as you can see here, we have a lot of activity here on the ledge. And if you come over here and look even deeper, you can see a whole lot of bugs hanging out under this ledge. And just so you know, if I sprayed this place and I was thorough, and if I baited most of the cabinets, but I failed to check that ledge, I probably wouldn't be very successful in eliminating the roaches. Now in our B&G, I've mixed up a pesticide that includes a strong product as well as an IGR. And so right here, I just hit about 15 of them, and right here I'm going to hit another 20 or 25. And this shows you that even though the bait would work well and it would kill them, this gets a little bit quicker knocked down in the process. Now he mentioned that they had some problems with this refrigerator, and usually we can pull out a refrigerator, which is pretty important because roaches do like the back side of a fridge where the motor is. Usually we'll spray that motor real well, and you can also poof some dust in between the grill of the motor cover. But a lot of times that cover is made out of cardboard, and they like the warmth of the electric wires as well as the cardboard itself. And right here around this fridge, since I can't pull it out, I will be placing some bait in these areas, and just try to place some bait in areas where if there's roaches coming out of the fridge, they can eat the bait. Now this is called a clean out, but the principles still apply in a mobile home just as they would in a home. See this closet area? It's like a closet door. Any type of door in a home, or a mobile home for this matter, a lot of times, see, they like the wood, and they also like to congregate together around the wood. And basically, if I was to go through here, wow, that's a lot of roaches. And I didn't notice these roaches. And I just sprayed all the other areas. I sprayed the kitchen, but I didn't look further to the closet areas, the closet doors, the hinges. Basically, I would have missed out on all this type of activity. And if you look, wow, that is a lot of activity. Now, I'm not going to be able to rely solely on bait here, because as I've been training you, it's just too much bait for 40 or 50 roaches. I'd rather just treat them, and of course safety comes first. We don't want to spray where people on their plates, utensils, on their countertop, if their countertop has cleaned dishes on them, or even dirty dishes for that matter. I did place some bait here, but I'm going to spray the inner rails that I just showed you. You can see the bait works really well, and they start eating it right away. But instead of wasting a whole tube of bait in here, I'm just going to use a spray treatment method. Now, one good thing, which I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be on that side when I spray on my way out and exiting. Once again, the same principle when you open a door, a cabinet door above your head. You don't want your head to be right under there if there's a really bad infestation. So instead of me spraying this before I exit the place, I'm going to go ahead and spray it on my way out so that they won't fall on my head. Okay, I've sprayed this rail now. And so over the next 5 or 10 minutes, all the ones that were treated are going to want to come out and basically die. Now, another good point is when they come out and die, a lot of times their bodies will start basically convulsing out of control, and they'll run up high trying to get away from the product. And once they get onto the ceiling, they start losing control of all their neurological capabilities. And so what will happen if you're treating a really bad home and you stick around too long, well, let's just say more than 25 minutes or 30 minutes, they can fall on your head from the ceiling as well. And so I recommend being very thorough, very generous, not rushing, but when you do get done, one just fell on my arm, when you do get done, get the heck out.
Don't forget, when treating for German roaches, you have to look high and low to find out where these guys are hiding. They like dark places with warmth and humidity, such as behind the refrigerator motor, under the dishwasher, under countertops, and in severe infestations, they will be in all rooms of the home. So be sure to check closet door hinges and behind the picture frames. These areas are ideal for roach bait.